The main street, a murky gray, faded, sometimes sluggish. Walking along it feels like a heavy burden. Every house has a name tag plastered on its door, overflowing like a city afraid of what might disappear. An unnamed writer recounts how the city hasn't had true laughter in a long time. The events unfolded, fearing that what they had might not be there tomorrow. Everything was branded with oil, even bricks and coffee spoons. The names were fully engraved to make themselves feel safe, but it only made the entire city quiet, so quiet it felt like no one was breathing. Blazer, echoes from both the past and the future. They thought if they wrote their name directly over it, they'd own it forever. But the truth is, the more they wrote, the hungrier the city became. Fruit vendor, come on. Measurement, what's ours is ours. Don't believe it. Even the mirror was labeled with a name, as if the owner was afraid the reflection would escape. But only the girl wasn't worried about this. Inside the small house, a mirror was covered in so many labels that the reflection was barely visible. Only a small window showed Taidy's face as she stood there, laughing softly, as if chatting with a friend. "Why did you write your name on the mirror? Even when I close my eyes, the image disappears." This child, her heart is still light. She doesn't want to possess anything. That's why she can laugh from the heart. A dimly lit corner of the city, a nameless old woman leans against a time-stained wall. The nameless old woman says she used to be part of this city, but people have forgotten her, as if she never existed. Her body seems more translucent than most, but her voice is clear, as if it were from yesterday and tomorrow at the same time. She looks toward Tidy's house and laughs knowingly in her throat. This city is changing because of this child, and she knows that change always begins with a little laugh. Old woman, this child will startle the whole city. A real laugh is always louder than a branding. Neighbor boy, not seeing the old woman. Huh? Who said? There's none. On a night that should have been quiet, the city shook slightly. Not terrifyingly, the streetlights trembled as if they were being blown by the wind, even though the air was still. But it felt like something was awakening. Tagged objects throughout the city began to tremble on their own, as if they were displeased at being forced to belong to someone else. Oh, why are things on the table shaking on their own? Did someone disturb them? The old woman narrating. The city warned us, but the humans still pretended not to notice. Inside the old house, the pale yellow lights flickered. Every labeled item began to move, seemingly alive. The door snapped open as if it wanted to be released. The dining table moved away. The dolls they had been holding tightly turned away. The people were so shocked they almost cried, but they still reached out and hugged them tighter, as if trying to force them to admit, "This is mine." The boy next door, shocked. "Mom, my doll won't turn around." Mother, trembling. "Hold it tight, son. Hold it as tight as you can. It's ours." Old woman. Things that are squeezed too hard always slip away. The town square was littered with a variety of items. Name tags were falling off one by one like falling leaves. Amidst the chaos, Taidy felt a sense of calm. She saw that the items weren't stubborn, but merely trying to tell humans that belonging to someone wasn't their happiness. She spoke softly, as if talking to a friend. and for the first time the entire town fell silent a little. It was as if she were listening to a small child. Taidy, softly, "Things we truly own don't have to squeeze them so tight." The old woman looked at her and smiled faintly. "That's right, little girl. Things that are squeezed always come out the fastest." Deep in the forest near the city, creatures moved in a strange unison. It was as if they knew something was about to change. The owl, which should have been asleep, was staring at the city. Its eyes were bloodshot, as if it saw something humans had long since lost sight of. Old woman, those creatures always sense the vibrations of the earth faster than humans. Owl, whispering like the wind, "The balance is tipping to the other side." It wasn't just animals moving. Even the trees trembled as if listening for something. The roots underground communicated silently. The deer stood like a statue, but its eyes were fixed on the city. The city was making the world uncomfortable by holding everything in its grasp. Humans try to hold on to everything, even things they shouldn't. When the earth is uncomfortable, the forest always rises first. Hundreds of pairs of eyes from the dark forest stared at the little girl, not with anger, but as if they were watching for the hope that humanity had long forgotten. The forest knew the city was losing its balance because humans were too attached. But one child looked at the world without wanting to possess anything, and that was what the forest had been waiting to hear. "Everything seems sad because it's held too tightly, right?" The old woman smiling faintly. "This child is truly the key they've been waiting for." An old woman led Taidy to a building no one dared enter. An old office, dust billowing in the air, dimly lit. Hundreds of old files lined up as if looking back. It was said to be the final office of the mysterious old governor. He had passed a law that required the entire city to own everything in sight, to make the city easier to control. But he himself had disappeared. Only an empty chair remained untouched for decades. Before, no one owned anything in this city. Everyone shared it naturally. Then why did it have to change? Because they were afraid that without an owner, the city would be unable to control anyone. The old woman picked up a file. Inside was a copy of the proclamation that changed the city forever. The proclamation read, "If no one owns anything, the city will lose control. So, own everything you see." After that day, the townspeople began labeling everything, from their clothes and belongings to their own memories. Taidy, softly, "Is the governor really thinking that way?" Old woman, "Yes, and that's how the city slowly died from the inside." The old woman walked to the empty chair. She didn't touch it, but stood a step away. She said in a soft voice, as if speaking to someone else in the room, "This governor has been consumed by something he's trying to control." Suddenly, the chair creaked softly. It was as if someone had reluctantly moved away. Taidy shivered, but she was even more curious. "Taidy, he's been
Consumed? What does that mean? The old woman, looking at the empty chair. When a person thinks everything belongs to him, he ends up being consumed by that thing instead.
One day, the entire city shook more violently than ever. It wasn't a tremor from underground, but rather the world was revealing its long-hidden identity. A long crack ripped through the city like a fresh wound, and within that crack, another city appeared. A city without bright colors or signs, but filled with a mist that seemed to float with life. Taidy, wide-eyed, "It's like a city, but twisted like a dream." The old woman, "Because it's the other side of the city, the side that humans have forgotten since they first became attached to it." As Taidy stepped through the crack, the misty city seemed to breathe welcomingly. Objects floated freely, as if free of the weight of ownership. The river flowed back into the sky, as if trying to escape the gravitational pull of the original world. Some houses smiled strangely, as if they were glad that no one would ever label them again. Taidy, "Here, does no one own anything?" Old woman, "Here, everything is free from attachment, and because of that, it can beat to its own rhythm again." The adults walked through the cracks without even looking back. It was as if the mist city didn't exist, or maybe it was as if they were blindfolded. Only Taidy could see everything clearly, and the closer she got, the closer the mist became, as if protecting her. The old woman said softly, "Only those who still don't believe that what's mine can see the mist city." Taidy, "So I can see because I don't want to own anything, right?" The old woman with a sad smile, "And because of that, you're the only one the mist city is waiting for." When two cities overlap, the old rules of the cities no longer apply. Everything from tables, chairs, books, and even dolls begins to move as if searching for a home. Not a home that's occupied, but a home that once truly loved. Taidy, does everything choose who it wants to be with? Old woman, "Yes, every item remembers who once cared for it with their heart, not with a name tag." Each piece began to remember its way home. The old chair where Grandpa used to sit and read to him strides back toward him as if he'd recognized the voice. The tiny shoe runs toward the child who had stitched the tear for it. As the tall tree bends its branches, it touches the head of the person who once listened to the wind beneath its shade. As for those who had never cared for anything, they begin to feel cold because even the blanket is gone. Taidy, trembling, "It's gone back to the one who loved it, really." One boy, hugging the shoe, "It remembers that I stitched it for it when it was torn. It really remembers." Chaos began to brew. Some people grabbed for things that were once theirs, but none of them would return. They screamed at the objects, demanding they be mine. But the objects just laughed softly. The sound was like shattering glass, as if to say, "You were nothing to begin with." The city shook again. It was as if the world was preparing for a new round of judgment. One man shouting, "Come back here! You're mine!" The object's voice, faint but clear, "You just put a name tag on it, not love." As each item chooses its owner, the remaining people begin searching for the last remaining item, and all eyes turn to Taidy, the only girl who is fearless, unmoved, as if she were made for this chaos. One man, This child must belong to the city. Look, she's the only one the mist city accepts. Another woman, no, she belongs to the family. Children don't have the right to choose for themselves. Taidy, muttering softly, mine, mine? Whose am I? The chaos intensified. Everyone shouted, Taidy is mine! But amidst the noise, the ground became still. It was as if the city was waiting to hear something more important than human voices. Because in reality, what the city feared most was not the loss of anything, but the recognition that nothing belongs to anyone. A group of people shouted, this child is the key. If we possess her, everything will be restored to the way it was. A girl standing at the very back. Or maybe it shouldn't have gone back to the way it was in the first place? The old woman slowly appeared, as if from beyond the 2 layers of reality. She placed her hand on Taidy's shoulder, and all the voices in the city, of the people, of the city, of the mist, stopped. The words she spoke were so heavy they cut through the air. You belong to no one. Even you don't belong to you. In that instant, everyone was stunned because it was the truth they had been avoiding all along. They couldn't even control their own lives. The old woman, voice echoing from beneath the earth. You're just a watcher of this body for a time. Taidy, very softly. I am just a watcher? The old woman. Yes, just like everyone here. As people accepted that nothing belongs to anyone, the once suffocatingly dense city began to relax. The colors of the buildings changed, the cracks in the walls ceased, and the heavy feeling in the air gradually eased. The foggy city and the old city slowly moved closer together. It was like 2 people who had stopped arguing and embraced silently. Middle-aged man. It's strange. Once we stopped asserting ownership, everything seemed lighter. The girl looking at the name tag fragment. It must have wanted to break free for a long time. I just let it go. A new city, without signs, without lines, was born. But it was much brighter than the old one, not because there was more light, but because people's hearts began to see the world as it was, not as they wanted it to be. Everyone began to care for things, not because they owned them, but because they wanted to care. And strangely enough, everything responded better than ever. Old woman. You know, a city never wanted to be owned by anyone. It just wanted to be understood. Taidy. It's just like me. I don't want to belong to anyone. I just want people to really listen to me. Taidy stared at the sky, which had just changed color. She didn't know who she belonged to, and she wasn't afraid anymore. The old woman spoke, her voice coming from the deepest part of the town's heart. Old woman is a burden. Caring without clinging is beauty. And when you understand that even we ourselves don't belong, that's the beginning of true freedom. Taidy, I understand. Because nothing belongs to us, we love it with the greatest freedom. The old woman standing beside her smiled, then faded like the morning mist. This story reminds us we never truly own anything, not even ourselves. And when we let go, we don't try to conquer the world. The world becomes gentler to us in a way it never had before.